views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views of BronxNet or the program underwriters.
Straight ahead on this edition of Perspectives, our foreign policy analyst joins us to give us an update of some major international news and issues. Mark Myritz is here. He's talking Turkey, national security, as well as the terrorism and recent terror attacks across Europe and the Middle East regions. That's coming up on this edition of Perspectives with yours truly, Darren Jaime.
What's on your mind?
Let 'em know.
What's on your mind? What's on your mind?
Let 'em know. Anything relevant to life, you bring it to the table. Whether you make a move solo or a movement with a stable. No fables, you speak on your decisions. Cause in the long run, it's your voice, your views, your vision. Keeping it real with many messages for you to know. This ain't radio, but DJ runs the show. Entertainment, he rocks it. Politics, he locks it. The host with the most would handle any topic. Don't forget to share your perspective which shines a light. Cause it might make a difference in someone else's life.
Make a difference.
What's your perspective?
Express what's in your heart and your mind. Share your perspective.
What's your perspective? Let 'em know.
And hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Perspectives. As I am Darren Jaime, we thank you for watching, and we encourage you to watch every week here on Perspectives. You can catch us on BronxNet's channel 67. If you have Verizon Fios, it's channel 33. Now, listen, if you want to check us out on our social networking sites, BronxNet Perspectives on Facebook as well as Twitter. Also, you can hit me up on my personal page, Darren C. Jaime. Share with us what you like about the show, what you dislike, even what you want to see. We're always open and available because this is what the show's about, perspectives, sharing perspectives. But on this show, we talk a lot about foreign policy. As we know, it's a major agenda that affects the White House, foreign policy, and how we handle international relations. A lot going on, and we've got a very special guest in studio who's no stranger here to Perspectives and sharing with us a little bit today. Mark Myritz, who's our foreign policy analyst, as well as assistant professor at SUNY Maritime, and we're glad to have him sharing with us here today. And Mark, good to have you.
It's fantastic to be here, Darren.
Good.
Fantastic.
Good
The
to have
world is moving along. There's a lot going on.
A lot going on
There's
in the
a lot
world.
going
And,
on.
Let's talk about the breaking news that's really centered around the United States and President Obama having to answer some questions about possible ransom paid for hostages.
Right. So the big story is that apparently the United States paid Iran $450 million to release those hostages. And what they basically did was put cash on pallets in a plane and sent it to Iran without telling Congress and without telling anybody. So that's a kind of a serious thing. But the administration says it's not a ransom. You can call it a ransom, but it isn't. It was just one of the payments, part of the deal that we made with Iran on nuclear development.
Which brings to light the question of, are we paying and negotiating in a manner that is contradictory to what most Americans and American government believes?
Well, the official policy is we don't negotiate with Iran or with terrorists to release hostages. The fact of the matter is that Iran has actually taken into custody a number of additional dual citizens who have dual U.S. Iranian citizenship and dual, some European countries like UK and Iranian citizenship. They're holding them at this present time. And they're probably going to ask for more money. The administration says this money is not ransom, right? But what's the point of paying in cash? That's the kind of the story of the deal. You pay in cash because we have a sanctions regime against Iran. So they couldn't pay them by wire transfer, and they couldn't pay them through a bank check. I don't know how you do that, because that was illegal. So what they did was they piled cash on a plane. I think all of it is really, troublesome, worrisome to do that. But again, the administration says you can call it ransom, but it's just part of the deal. The question then is about the whole deal. The problem is Iran itself has been having ballistic missile tests, which is also in violation of our agreements. So the whole thing doesn't look very good for the president and the Secretary of State.
Moving along, I got to talk because we got several things we want to
Yes.
discuss here. And I know this is near and dear to your heart, but we talk
Yes.
about Turkey
Yes.
and the coup in Turkey.
Yes.
For those
Yes.
people who may not know, give us a walkthrough of exactly
Sure.
all the events that transpired with Turkey here.
Sure. July 15th is the key day. In the evening, people are walking around the streets late in the evening around 10 p.m., and there's a coup attempt. Soldiers going to the big Bosporus Bridge and blocking it. Planes flying, attacks on the Turkish parliament. Incredible events going on in the evening while people are walking around the streets enjoying a Friday night. Absolutely unbelievable. What happened was President Erdogan was on vacation in a resort in Marmaris, and commandos apparently were on the way to kill him. He missed them by about 25 minutes. He was able to go on either Skype or WhatsApp or maybe FaceTime and somehow broadcast. Where they took the iPhone at the broadcast studio. Can you imagine here at BronxNet holding up, President Obama? They could make you internationally famous. And there was Erdogan on the phone, broadcast in his saying, go to the streets, confront the soldiers, and stop this illegal coup. And they did it. The people went by the thousands and hundreds of thousands to the streets and climbed the tanks and confronted the soldiers. And the soldiers, these are young, young kids. They didn't shoot the people. The whole coup just crumbled. And now the government is basically rounding up the coup plotters, and a state of emergency has been declared in Turkey. So the situation is very much in turmoil in Turkey at the present time.
What do you feel as though, when you talk about this here, give us a state of where things are today?
Very worrisome. And the most worrisome thing is today, it turns out, current news is that the Turkish government has been seeking the extradition of Fethullah Gulen, who is a preacher in Pennsylvania, who the Turkish government maintains was the mastermind of the coup. We don't have time to go into the whole story of the Gulen movement, but from the Turkish government's point of view, Gulen runs a terrorist organization to undermine the Turkish state, organized the coup, and caused the death of many Turks in connection with the coup. Now, the United States has been asked to extradite him. But the reaction of President Obama and Secretary of State Kerry is, well, we have legal procedures here. We don't just extradite people. You have to show us specific proof of his guilt. That has not been met with a great satisfaction on the part of the Turkish leadership. The Turkish leadership says he made a coup. That's enough evidence. We want him to stand trial here. Now, that's all going on, and the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Dunford, went to Turkey yesterday to meet with the government in Turkey. Now we wake up today, and what happens? A Turkish lawyer has filed criminal charges against the American chairman of the Joint Chiefs, criminal charges, against General Votel, who's the CENTCOM commander, and against James Clapper, the head of national intelligence, claiming that the United States engineered the coup. That, to me, is, it would shake anybody's confidence in the future of U.S.-Turkish relations. Obviously, Turks are upset about Gulen. And giving them the benefit of the doubt, and Gulen is a mastermind of the coup, the extradition process in the United States is a long process. But to go ahead and consider criminal charges against the American government, American leadership, claiming that they engineered the coup, is a step in a direction that I feel is not only a slippery slope, but it's a deep gully and deep valley in our relations that's coming between the U.S. and Turkey. And to go to the point that you asked about terrorism, we need Turkey to fight against ISIS. And so how can we have we have to have great relations with Turkey, and we need their help.
Right.
So this is all around very, very upsetting and worrisome.
Which is what I want to do, and I think I'll go to the break right now.
Okay.
I want to talk about Turkey and that whole situation
Perfect.
of having them fight against ISIS. What can we expect in this? I'll give you a few minutes to get your mind together while we go to a quick break.
Wonderful.
We'll come back and continue more with Mark Myers when we return, talk about Turkey and the relationship between Turkey, the United States, and ISIS.
Being prepared is a part of who you are, but it's especially important in the case of a disaster. Be informed about possible emergencies in your area. Make a plan that covers where you go in an emergency. build a kit with the things you need to survive. There's no one more capable of planning for your situation than you. Start your plan today. Go to ready.gov/myplan.
They said I have troll teeth.
That my voice sounded like a possessed baby doll.
That no one would ever love someone as stupid as me.
That I was fat, ugly.
Disgusting.
The effect of bullying is potent. We will no longer be the silent majority.
Now, when you see online bullying, there's something you can do about it.
We're gonna take action with the I.
I am a witness.
I am a witness.
I am a witness.
I am a witness.
I am a witness, and so are you.
It's not always easy being a dad.
Do you have panda asthma too? Does that run in the family?
This is the home of the most priceless kung fu artifacts.
But when you make an effort,
Dad, we're not supposed to touch anything. Oh, sorry.
Go long, son!
it's always worth it.
Whoa! Faster!
The smallest moments can have the biggest impact on a child's life. Take time to be a dad today.
I am gonna get you. I'm gonna get you.
Call 877-4DAD-411 or visit fatherhood.gov to learn more.
Me and my boy Matt had it good. He had catnip that was off the hook. But one day, he brings a girl home, and she's allergic to cats. Every sneeze was a nail in my coffin. Now I'm in a shelter. It's decent, but they don't even have Wi-Fi.
Back here, our perspectives continue our conversation with Mark Myritz, who's assistant professor over at SUNY Maritime, and then also he is our foreign policy analyst, and we're glad to have him here with us.
It's wonderful to be here.
Sharing a little bit before the break, we were talking about that U.S.-Turkey relations.
Yes.
Obviously, we know that Turkey
Yes.
is a major force in defending ISIS on the part of the United States. Given the fact that the current state of events is going on right now, what can we presume in regards to Turkey's participation in future assistance to the United States?
Well, you know, there's a base in Turkey called Incirlik, and that's a joint U.S.-Turkey base where we have a bilateral agreement to be able to operate there, a multilateral agreement with the coalition fighting ISIS. It's a key platform to fight ISIS. Now, this became problematic because some of the coup plotters were officers and generals at that base. So there have been protests there on a regular basis from, you know, Turks coming to the streets and saying, you know, America's behind the coup. Incirlik base was used as the base, you know, is used as the for the coup. You know, you fueled planes there. So bottom line is that is a base that's very close to the operations of ISIS in Syria. So I would put a question mark about this right now. I mean, I'm not sure. You know, the news is that the base continues to operate. The sorties are continuing against ISIS. Overall, ISIS remains a difficult target in the world because you have ISIS, which is actually losing territory. I mean, the United States just hit them in Libya. But to me, it seems like their tentacles are everywhere, plus the lone wolf attacks. So, you know, I did think about it when you said before the break, but I think that it's a tough question. How do you take them out? Do you take out their territory? Sure. But then they have the sympathizers around the world doing these attacks, and they seem to be coordinated attacks. So it's puzzling.
And here at home, some local radicalization going on.
Exactly.
In terms of, you know, those persons who
An
are
incredible story is that there's I'm not accusing the guy, but apparently some guy who works for the Washington, D.C. Metro was arrested today as being a sympathizer for ISIS. I just was looking at this news development. I mean, you really have to scratch your head and you really have to be worried to understand that it seems that ISIS has unlimited potential to develop sympathizers. How do you stop that? I mean, I don't have a simple answer. Obviously, we have to have good security, good homeland security. We have to have good intelligence. You know, the FBI is strapped in terms of following all these suspects. How do we handle it? We need legislation, obviously, on the gun side to prevent people from being able to get weaponry to use. This is, I think, one of the main principles of Hillary Clinton's campaign. But we need to have a cohesive and coherent foreign policy. That's where I think the candidates are, have a disconnect. We have Clinton, who has a policy and approach, and then Trump trying to understand his policy is very, very difficult against ISIS. His policy against ISIS is, I'm going to beat the you-know-what out of ISIS. This is his policy about ISIS. I don't see how that is a sufficient policy.
But how much does foreign policy play in the fact of, we know that, voters will be going to the polls and they have certain things on their minds. How much does foreign policy play in the minds of voters?
I mean, Darren, traditionally, foreign policy is not at the top of the list.
But
it's
given the
bread
current
and
state
butter,
of
right?
affairs.
I mean, it's jobs, it's economy, it's healthcare. That's what people care about. But look at the world today. People are worried. They see ISIS attacking in urban centers. They see a guy take a truck and mow down people. We have it in Orlando. We have it in around the United States too. It's with us at the present time. So people are concerned about it. But I don't think that anybody has come up with a good solution to stop it, particularly the lone wolf attacks. I don't know how you stop that. I don't know how you stop somebody from taking a truck and mowing down people if that person doesn't care whether that person lives or dies. I mean, it's a very, very tough thing. Yes, we can take them out, reduce their territory in Syria and Iraq. We're doing that, okay? We're doing all those things. Part of that has involved also getting Iran to help us with that. That's why these things that we talked about before are possible to pay off Iran, because the United States needs Iran to help us in the war against ISIS. But even if we shrink their territory, they seem to be able to maneuver and get sympathizers around the world. So there's got to be more surveillance. There's got to be more legal action. But right now, we're in a pre-election period. So a lot of the things that they say the car is not in drive. The car is not, the political system is in election mode. And that tends to slow us down in terms of planning for the future, because we don't know who the leadership's going to be.
How is the United States viewed on a foreign policy perspective, from a foreign policy perspective, by those outside? We know that you specialize in Turkey, but from across the world, how do you think the United States is viewed? Because from our perspective, we're supposed to be the superpower, the powerhouse. But in the other eyes, we look kind of suspect.
Well, look, the world has a love-hate relationship with the United States. I mean, you mentioned Turkey, and there's a lot of anti-Americanism there, always has. But even in Europe, the war in Iraq did not ingratiate the United States in the eyes of the world. People are still angry with us about the war attack, the invasion of Iraq. So the answer is that we're the go-to power at the present time. But we didn't mention Russia, because Russia's sitting there in the background, okay? And according to some of our military leaders and our analysts, they say Russia is the #1 adversary. And behind Russia, we also have China. So yeah, we might be the go-to superpower. We've got a lot of antagonists. And as you say, we're not on everybody's love list. We're not on everybody's top list of admiration. Although, look at the United States, and particularly the story that's been going on in this convention with these parents of this captain, okay? I think this shows America at its best, okay? At its best. Not Trump's comments about it, but the fact that we admire, on all sides of the political spectrum, we admire those who sacrificed for us. We admire, our soldiers. We admire people who maybe in the rest of the world wouldn't get much admiration. So we've got a good message, and our message, we have to continue to promote our message. Notwithstanding that we have detractors, and we do. We have to promote our message of America as the country that's that's been the savior of the world. World War I, World War II. We've been there for the downtrodden in the world. If there's an earthquake, if there's some disaster, who's putting planes out there to go and help people? America. We do it even though we don't always win the popularity poll. And I think that makes us special, and I think we have to keep promoting that specialness even though we get pushback.
We'll be back with final comments from Mark Myers when we return right here on Perspective. Stay with us. We'll be right back in a few.
I'm only 17, but I know about investing. Believe in something, buy shares in it, watch it grow. So, what if you could invest in the future? The future of kids, like a stock. Not the kind of stock that's about making money, but a stock for social change. A whole new kind of investment called Better Futures. When you invest, it helps kids go to college. I could be one of the first college graduates from my family, the first philanthropist from my neighborhood. And if I'm the first, then maybe there's a second and a third. Believe in us, invest in us, watch us grow. My name is Sydney, and I'm your dividend.
Hey, did you know 2.4 million loving cats and dogs in shelters and rescues need our help to find a home? Let's go to the shelterpetproject.org and meet a few who are in a shelter near you. Harlow, oh, she's one great listener who loves to hear all your stories. My kind of cat. Cerulo is a sweet, goofy boy who's eager to please. Sounds just like another dog I know. So go to the shelterpetproject.org, search your local shelters and rescues, and go for a cuddle with your next best friend. Adopt.
Back here on Perspectives, continuing our final segment with Mark Myers here on talking about foreign policy. In the break, we're talking a little bit. Donald Trump has received a whole lot of criticism for a lot of the comments that he's made, but you actually give him credit on some things.
Well, I think, in terms
and it's
of
okay.
credit,
You can give him credit.
No, I know. I'm happy to give him credit. I think that, the idea that he brings forward, it's a mixed message. America first has got some connotations to it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So maybe it's a good idea to say, concentrate on America first, okay? We have all these problems here. But the problem is that when you make a statement that, the NATO countries, if they want to be involved, that they need our help, right? And we said before, we're the go-to power. They have to pay up. They have to be paid up, okay? It's like you go to the grocery store. You have an account, you're not paid up. You're not paid up, I won't defend you, okay? And then he says on Ukraine and Crimea, he says Crimea, well, maybe Crimea belongs to the Russians. So I think the problem there is that it's very, very risky to make statements about foreign policy in that respect but people actually listen to that. People actually might get worried about the fact that if something happens in Europe, do they think that Trump were president, he wouldn't send help? I mean, that's very worrisome. And that you cannot make those statements. The United States is the go-to power, and whoever is in contention to be the president has to be very careful about what you say. Because Russia's out there, and Russia went into Crimea. And maybe they would go into Ukraine. Now, Trump's statement is, they will not go into Ukraine. You can bet on that. Well, I mean, how do you bet on that? You can't bet on that. You're talking about, the future of stability in the world.
President Obama only has a few months left on the clock as far as President of the United States. What can we expect to see by him by way of foreign policy closing out his term?
Well, his policy has been one of disengagement. He didn't want to get involved in Syria in the war, and he didn't. He didn't want to put troops there. He kept some more troops in Afghanistan, but his legacy, his point was, I'm not going to reignite these wars. Okay, that's a lot of support for that. But the problem is that the world is teetering and tottering in terms of the stability of that region. And we mentioned before Turkey. Turkey is now in chaos. So if you say in terms of foreign policy, I don't really think there will be any momentous foreign policy developments between now and the election, certainly. What he's going to try to do, I think, is keep everything stable and in a good place. And I think he's done that and will continue to do it. And I also think that his legacy is building in such a very good way. When he went to the DNC, he spoke at the convention, gave a great speech. When he spoke about his, Trump's statements and so forth, I think he showed presidential leadership and what presidential leadership is about and what's the paradigm for that. And I think that was very helpful. And that should be the guidepost for these candidates to look at this president who was reelected 2 terms and how his leadership has formed and matured over time. So the answer to your question is, I don't see much, unless, of course, there are more, God forbid, terrorist attacks or big developments. I think he's going to try to keep it very stable, and so we have a smooth sailing. But again, he's not in control of the world and of the future. What do you think?
Give me your. How would you grade on a grade scale? How would you grade his foreign policy throughout both terms?
Right. So I think there are different times and time periods. I think at some points he gets a lower grade, but I think at the present time he's somewhere in in the B range. I don't think he gets overall, I think he's a B plus. I think he again, if your policy is disengagement, and he has done that, and he has kept us out of major conflagrations in the world, I give him good points for that. But in terms of in terms of giving him a projection on the future, I think that it's impossible for him to control the entire world. It's impossible. He made the Iranian nuclear deal, and he put that situation temporarily in status quo. Now, some criticize the deal, and others think best deal ever. So the other point is, when I give the grade, or when you give a grade, it also depends where you sit in the political spectrum. And that becomes very politicized. So I think overall, I think he's done a good job to keep us out of war. But on some of the specifics, he might get, this thing with the ransom deal and so forth. There is a little bit questionable. I know why he did it. I understand why he did it. But not telling Congress about it, if I would be asking Congress, if Darren would be asking Congress, they might say, you don't get a good grade for that. You're supposed to tell us about it.
Leave it to the professor to grade on the curve. Mark Myers, thank you so much for sharing.
I'm going to give him a high grade on the curve.
Okay.
Okay.
Mark Myers, our foreign policy analyst here, sharing with us here on Perspectives. Thank you, Mark, for
it's a great pleasure.
Great to have you here.
Tremendous.
And great to have you with us watching Perspectives. Listen, check us out every week, channel 67, 7 p.m., where you get a fresh episode of Perspectives for all of us here on the set. I'm Darren Jaime saying take care. Until next time we meet, share your perspective with somebody else. It just might make a difference in someone else's life.
Because it might make a difference in someone else's life.
What's your perspective? Express what's in your heart and your mind. Share your perspective.
What's your perspective? Let them know.
What's on your mind?
Let 'em know.
Express what's on your mind. What's on your mind?
Let 'em know. Anything relevant to life, you bring it to the table. Whether you make a move solo or a movement with a stable. No fables, you speak on your decisions. Cause in the long run, it's your voice, your views, your vision. Keeping it real with many messages for you to know. This ain't radio, but DJ runs the show. Entertainment, he rocks it. Politics, he locks it.